Welcome back. Federal election, October 19th. And joining us today to talk about how his campaign is going is Matt Greenwood. He is the Green Party candidate for our riding. Great to have you on the show.
Yeah, thank you.
Nice to meet you. Thought I'd shake your hand since you reached out there. How are things going for you so far with your campaign? It's been a long campaign, I know, for everyone. So
long and expensive.
Yeah. How are you spending your time?
Well, last weekend I was at the IPE in Armstrong.
And what's the IPE?
That's the Interior Provincial Exhibition. It's a big farm fair. It's the same as, for example, the Barrier Fall Fair.
Okay.
Just a little bit bigger. And so, yeah, we were down there with a few Green Party candidates from the area. The neighboring ridings all got together and had a table there, and we're just meeting people and talking to them about what their concerns are and what their hopes are.
What are you hearing from people? Because, you know, you're hearing some backlash for some of the candidates out there, some of the leaders out there right now. You know, what are you hearing from people in our riding?
Well, I mean, obviously there's the change dynamic that everyone's going on about. There's also, of course, we must stay the course. But I think a lot of people that haven't been getting so much attention are the ones who are just kind of giving up in despair about the whole thing. Where we look at the way Parliament has been going over the past 9 years, especially the last 4, and there's no talking anymore. There's no communication. There's no cooperation or collaboration. It's just shouting, partisan, tribal shouting, and nothing productive gets done. And a lot of people are justifiably sick of that. And to them, I think the Green Party represents a different and I would say a better way forward.
We've seen Tom Mulcair come through town. We've now seen Stephen Harper, of course, yesterday morning come through town.
Well, a few people saw him anyway.
Right. Yes, you could say it that way. Will we see your leader coming through? Is Elizabeth May planning on being in Kamloops before the 19th of October?
I sure hope so. I haven't heard firm plans yet, but it's been a Green tradition for the past several elections, of course, to put her on a train at some point and send her across the country. And in that case, of course, Kamloops is the first stop after Vancouver. So yeah, I hope that we can continue the tradition again this year.
It was the middle of the night one year, though, wasn't it?
Well, it is the early, right? She leaves Vancouver and then it comes overnight. So it's usually very early in the morning.
Right.
But hopefully the daylight will still be up early enough, and we'll see what the scheduling is or how it works out.
Let's touch on that for a minute. This coming Thursday, there's an economic debate amongst the party leaders. I believe it's in Calgary.
Yes.
And Elizabeth May is not invited. What is behind that?
Yeah, well, that's something that's been a struggle with the Greens for many years now. It's just this constant on again, off again. Are we in? Are we out? What's going on? I think it was not a coincidence that it was 1 week after the big broadcaster consortium debate, which traditionally has been the most viewed simultaneously broadcast event of every election almost in Canadian history, and certainly modern Canadian history. 1 week after they finally said, early on, no doubt, no wishy-washy, she's in for sure. 1 week after that was when Stephen Harper said, well, I'm out. I don't think that's a coincidence. Instead, he opted to go to these 5 much smaller, much more localized debates with much smaller audiences, making the risk much smaller in case he goes and says something that people don't like. There are far fewer people who will actually be seeing that happen. And so I think I would suspect, if past experience is anything to go on, that one or more of the leaders probably made it clear to the Globe that if May was invited to that one, then they wouldn't be attending. And the Globe, getting a fairly rare opportunity to host a leaders' debate in a federal election, probably unfortunately caved to that pressure. That would be my personal guess.
Okay, so for one reason or another, we don't know for sure, Elizabeth May will not be in that election debate this Thursday night, but instead she will be partaking via Twitter, I believe, somewhere out of where she's from in Victoria.
Exactly. She'll be in a church in Victoria, and it is a really exciting innovation, I think. As she says, you don't have to wait anymore to be invited to something. If within the age of social media, you can be involved. And so yeah, there's going to be a live Twitter feed. She'll be essentially a play-by-play commentary, a much needed one, I think, especially with this news of the so-called surprise surplus that just came out, and finding out some of the true details behind that will be pretty important, because there will be a whole lot of hot air around it from both sides. So it'll be good to have some sort of tether to reality.
Fair enough. Let's talk a little bit quickly about Matt Greenwood. What does a vote for Matt Greenwood represent?
Sure. Well, I think a vote for me is, in this riding, in this election, a vote for me is, let's be honest, essentially a protest vote. But I think protest votes can be important too. When you look at people who thought voting for the Greens was a protest vote in the past because we were standing for things like proportional representation or for pharmacare or for just a whole range of policies that none of the other parties were talking about, in this election, we see that all three of the opposition parties now are campaigning on proportional representation. All three of the parties have taken different elements of the Green platform, and they've said, wow, this actually makes a lot of sense. The Liberals have taken the guaranteed livable income. The NDP is borrowed the national seniors strategy and dementia strategy. So there are ways forward there. But in this election, more than any, I think the most important protest vote is actually going to come from small C Conservatives who are looking at the Stephen Harper record and saying, you know, we have a number of things that we care about as Conservatives, and this government has not been giving us those things. We care about good fiscal management, and Harper has added $150 billion to the debt. We care about national sovereignty. Harper has sold the country to China until 2045. We care about treating our veterans right. Harper has turned the Veteran Affairs Canada into essentially a for-profit insurance company that first aim is to get them off the books. So on point after point, small C Conservatives care about privacy and getting away from big government. Well, hello C51, right? So on point after point, Harper has been able to say, you have to vote for me. You don't have a choice. Are you going to vote for the NDP? Are you going to vote for the Liberals? No, you have to vote Conservative or just not vote. And that's obviously not on for a lot of Conservatives too. But Elizabeth May has fought every single one of those issues. And so, in fact, both of the other candidates I was at the IPE with were lifelong Conservatives until they actually took a look at the Green platform and said, wow, this actually is exactly what I've always been looking for. So in this election, you know, Conservative voters who don't want to throw their support to one of the other parties in the mix, but don't want to support more of the same and more being taken for granted, they do have a choice.
Absolutely.
And that's I think, this one.
All right, well said, well spoken. I really appreciate you being here today, Matt.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we've learned a little bit more about Matt Greenwood. You can certainly learn more by going to greenparty.ca. Back in 2 minutes. Stay with us.